All right, let's do it. All right, how's breakfast, by the way? That's a lot of avocados. Can I get a show? Did anybody finish their avocado?
Like
That's a
people.
lot of avocado. Was that a millennial thing, Pia? Yeah. What, toast on avocado? Right, save the avocados. I think the banks are accepting them as mortgage repayments. All right, fantastic. So we've got a couple of tables that we have volunteered / picked on. Where are we, Linda? Linda was table...
Number 12.
Table 12, come on down. Round of applause for table 12. So what was your name? So could you repeat that, sorry?
Let's get the mic working.
Okay, we got them.
Cool.
I think that's working now.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Great, awesome. Well, I'm Poena, Pause, and I'm from iPro. Do you need me to answer the two questions?
Yes,
All right.
please. Thank you. Let us know. What's your
Awesome.
thoughts?
Okay, so we were just discussing on the table. I'm the only Gen Z, and we've got a couple of Gen Ys and Gen Xs, I reckon, as well.
You reckon?
We were just discussing what is considered as being professional and successful, and I thought it was really interesting because Martin was sharing how back in the day, probably before a COVID world,
Back in the day.
Back in the
ancient
Wild West.
times.
well, a pre-COVID world, right? Because I'm a COVID grad, so I started working literally after COVID, so
Okay.
I'm pretty fresh to all of this. But she spoke about how there was a bit of a clock in, clock out culture, and where you kind of had to be at your desk and getting work done, and that was seen as being professional. It was quite trim and tight is how I perceive it. Whereas when she was, I think Rob was also adding how it was quite popular to see, having social catch-ups over smoking breaks and whatnot. Whereas when I contrast that to my experience today, getting the work done and flexibility and having agents is a massive part of how I perceive the world as a professional today. So I thought that was quite a good contrast between us all. And how do we combine the then and the now? We came up with this entire concept of structured flexibility. I think at the table, we definitely agreed that we enjoy the fact that we've got flexible hours, but at the same time, we do need to structure that a bit more in the sense that, sure, let's do a 9 to 5, but can we have agency as to where we do that 9 to 5 and around which aspects of our lives we do that 9 to 5 around as well. So that's how we combined the then and now. Thank you.
Fantastic. Round of applause, please. Well done. Fantastic. All right. Which was our next table?
We have table 17 next.
Table
Where
17.
is table 17?
Please stand up. Come on down. Round of applause. Okay, hang on. We just get the microphone working. Just let's see.
Hello.
Hello.
Yep.
Hey, table 17. My name's Ryan. Okay, so we talked about a few things. Back in the day was thrown around a lot at our table as well. I think 3 things. Status, I think, has changed a lot in the workplace. I think, working late was glorified back in the day. And now it is definitely not. It's kind of seen as like, maybe you're not managing your hours properly during the day. I think there's a big kind of change there. Flexibility as well. Working in the city and working in the CBD in a big building, once upon a time was seen as like highly successful, like a big status symbol sort of thing. But now you want to work from home. You want to work the hours that make sense to you. And technology as well was another thing that we talked about. And that was kind of the thing that we combined the then and now of. It would be brilliant to have, the capabilities of tech as an enabler that we do now. But it would be great if everyone paid attention in a meeting and wasn't looking at their phones. So if we could have kind of like in the moment now, understanding what's happening, that would be great, but also it'd be good to have technology as well. But yeah, that's what we talked about.
Great. Round of applause, please. Thank you. Well done.
Beautiful. So, Dad, we've been asked to pick on one person today.
We have.
Shall we do it, or?
Yep.
No, okay, so MJ, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
That is good, thank you. So, one of your colleagues asked us to pick on you today.
We wonder who, MJ.
Yeah, we wonder who. Yeah. And so we've got a question for you. What was considered professional or successful, and how has that changed?
We need to get a microphone.
We need to get a microphone.
I think is a microphone just there?
Yeah.
Linda's coming with the
Linda's.
microphone. We are going off script, by the way.
Yeah.
Round of applause for MJ. Okay, bear with me. No, I think. Yep.
There we go. Well, whoever stitched me up there, thanks for the heads up on that question, 'cause, I didn't get one at all. What has changed, and what does professional mean now versus then? I think professional then did mean a lot more time and closeness with your colleagues and building relationships, and I think that also meant buying into the culture of the business that you arrived at and adapting to the culture of the business you arrived at. I think also agencies, media partners, everyone tended to employ people that were very, very similar. So they would buy into what was one singular culture. And I think that's changed hugely. Not as much as it could. I think we're still looking at a university-educated, white, middle-class kind of demographic broadly here, or more broadly than the population itself. But I think what has changed is the way in which people view professionalism and being part of an agency is actually much more about the work itself and potentially partially the opportunities for them, because they look at this as, where am I going within this in very short-term ways of looking at things, whereas I think with less options back then, people bought into the agency and the culture for a much longer period of time.
Great. Thank you. Round of applause, please. Well done. So, if we were to look at what drives the biggest leadership challenges right now, it's three things. And it's about communication. Firstly, it's about internal communication within the team. It's also about external communication with clients, with stakeholders. And lastly, it's about communicating and connecting with intimate relationships with our partner, our kids, our parents. So what does the data show in terms of what does the data show? It's quite interesting.
So one of the things that we've noticed is that this is the first time that we have 5 generations in the workforce. And corporates are struggling. Only 6% of organizations believe that their leaders are effectively managing intergenerational teams. And what makes it so scary in a way is that 47% of Gen Z employees feel older workers hinder their progress. I remember the first day I started my job at UBS, I got in, I was so excited just to be in this workforce. And I saw someone printing out every single email, annotating it, and then asking their assistant to write it up. Now, thankfully, that guy's moved on from the organization, but he was considered the fossil. And these people are still there. However, what we've also noticed is that 50% of employees over 50 are frustrated by their younger employees and how much they use their technology. With some of the studies that are coming out with MIT and OpenAI, what we're finding is that when people use ChatGPT so much, they actually reduce their critical thinking skills, because at the end of the day, that is a muscle. Now, I know that I'm talking to a group of millennials here, so I thought let's just figure out what the data says for that age group. And only 30% of millennials are engaged at work, the lowest of any generation. When you think about Gen Z coming into the workforce, they're coming in excited. You know, we've been in COVID, we're excited to work, and if we're learning from only 30% of a workforce that's actually engaged, what do you think will actually happen for Gen Z themselves? What we've also noticed is that 43% of millennials plan to switch jobs within the 2 years. It's really challenging to figure out how can we train and develop the next generation of talent when most people are just too busy easy applying to jobs on LinkedIn. What we've also found is that nearly 60% of them are feeling burnt out, and that they're expressing these views to their organization and workforce.
And when we do work with teams, what we find is that gap on communication connection, we pay a huge price. I call it a connection or communication tax. So 80% of work-related stress is due to internal team issues. What that means is people love their jobs, they just can't stand the people they work with. Obviously not you, friends of yours. 49% of workers would rather quit than have a conversation about a workplace issue. Boom. You can get a 30 to 40% uplift in team productivity if you just resolved internal communication issues. How do we find these out? Exit interviews. When people leave an organization, they spill their guts. They tell you what was really happening was this, but nobody had the conversation about it. 91% of people struggle to give feedback to their leaders, the people they work alongside. Intriguing. 87% of people struggle to give feedback to their peers. What the? Can you see why this tax is so important? It's an emotional tax, it's a mental tax. It's also a financial tax that we pay. 74% of clients switch service provider because the supplier did not listen. Weird, right? This seems to be low-hanging fruit. So what we find is that a lot of people have been trained in what we call a transactional type of communication. What we need to move to is more of a transmission and a transformational kind of communication. That the communication actually transforms the relationship. We've got a quick video on this. We're going to show it to you. Kind of funny, but just watch it. Let's hope the audio works, and go.
Have you ever talked with a friend about a problem, only to realize that he just doesn't seem to grasp why the issue is so important to you? Have you ever presented an idea to a group, and it's met with utter confusion? Or maybe you've been in an argument when the other person suddenly accuses you of not listening to what they're saying at all. What's going on here? The answer is miscommunication, and in some form or another, we've all experienced it. It can lead to confusion, animosity, misunderstanding, or even crashing a multi-million-dollar probe into the surface of Mars. The fact is, even when face-to-face with another person, in the very same room, and speaking the same language, human communication is incredibly complex. But the good news is that a basic understanding of what happens when we communicate can help us prevent miscommunication. For decades, researchers have asked what happens when we communicate. One interpretation, called the transmission model, views communication as a message that moves directly from one person to another, similar to someone tossing a ball and walking away. But in reality, this simplistic model doesn't account for communication's complexity. Enter the transactional model, which acknowledges the many added challenges of communicating. With this model, it's more accurate to think of communication between people as a game of catch. As we communicate our message, we receive feedback from the other party. Through the transaction, we create meaning together. But from this exchange, further complications arise. It's not like the Star Trek universe, where some characters can Vulcan mind meld, fully sharing thoughts and feelings. As humans, we can't help but send and receive messages through our own subjective lenses. When communicating, one person expresses her interpretation of a message, and the person she's communicating with hears his own interpretation of that message. Our perceptual filters continually shift meanings and interpretations. Remember that game of catch? Imagine it with a lump of clay. As each person touches it, they shape it to fit their own unique perceptions, based on any number of variables, like knowledge or past experience, age, race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or family background. Simultaneously, every person interprets the message they receive based on their relationship with the other person and their unique understanding of the semantics and connotations of the exact words being used. They could also be distracted by other stimuli, such as traffic or a growling stomach. Even emotion might cloud their understanding. And by adding more people into a conversation, each with their own subjectivities, the complexity of communication grows exponentially. So as the lump of clay goes back and forth from one person to another, reworked, reshaped, and always changing, it's no wonder our messages sometimes turn into a mush of miscommunication. But luckily, there are some simple practices that can help us all navigate our daily interactions for better communication. 1. Recognize that passive hearing and active listening are not the same. Engage actively with the verbal and nonverbal feedback of others and adjust your message to facilitate greater understanding. 2. Listen with your eyes and ears, as well as with your gut. Remember that communication is more than just words. 3. Take time to understand as you try to be understood. In the rush to express ourselves, it's easy to forget that communication is a two-way street. Be open to what the other person might say. And finally, 4, be aware of your personal perceptual filters. Elements of your experience, including your culture, community, and family, influence how you see the world. Say, this is how I see the problem, but how do you see it? Don't assume that your perception is the objective truth. That'll help you work towards sharing a dialogue with others to reach a common understanding together.
So I think the key message there, number one, is that sometimes we assume that the other person, be it your son, be it your colleague, has the same perceptual map as your own, number one. Number two is, and we're going to talk a bit later on when we talk about listening with your head, your heart, and your gut. And I think across generations, it's important, but also from a leadership role. So what we want to get you to think about is all the places that we miscommunicate. And sometimes even when we're speaking the same language, we're actually speaking different languages.
I think one of the things that I've noticed even when talking to Dad is sometimes the language I'm using just doesn't actually make sure that we can articulate our feelings and thoughts. The way Gen Z talks is very different to the way my dad talks. The way my dad talks is very different to how my grandfather talks. And I just wanted to show actually how this looks in action. So before we start this exercise, hands up if you're Gen Z here. There should be 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, 5, 6, good. So those people in this exercise will be your superpower. Because chances are they probably will be one of the only few people who will understand all of these terms. So we have a table competition where as a group, we've got a couple of words in the next slide. And in the next 5 minutes, I want you to guess what all of these words means. Now, here's the thing. This is a competition. Whoever wins gets, I don't know, a bowl of avocados that they can have for the trip home. And whoever finishes first, you need to scream and shout it out. But make sure you get all of the answers right. So here are the 10 words, actually. Let's see if you guys know all of them.
Let's go.
So hands up, who got everything but number 10? Okay, so just number 10 that's struggling. Who was the first one to say that they finished? It was
Over there.
Table 10. Okay, cool. How about we go through this together? What is cat's pajamas?
1 second. Hang on.
Nearly there.
No.
Anyway,
Okay.
cat's pajamas is the best.
Let's have a look. Let's see if you're right. Yep, excellent or outstanding. Nice work. What about long in the tooth?
Old.
Oh, yeah, cool. I actually didn't know that one. I had to look that one up. What's ghosting?
Ignoring.
Okay, but what is it in a Gen Z context?
In
Like, if I ghost you, what does that really mean?
You've stopped replying online, I guess?
Yeah.
Messages?
So there's 2 ways. It's really popular in like online dating, where if someone ghosts you, it's pretty much you've sent them an essay, they've scene zoned you, and then you've ghosted them. Yeah. So scene zone is when you can read the receipts that someone's read it, but then after they're like, oh, I'm just not going to respond. Yeah. It's like an email from your manager that you don't really care about. So leaving someone on read, seen, delivered. What is flex?
Showing off.
Okay, but how would you use it in a sentence? Because I just want to hear you.
I mean, why are you trying to flex on me?
Yeah, cool, good. Showing off, boasting. What's no cap?
Not lying.
Oh, I didn't think you would get that one. That was really good. That was really good, indicating that you aren't lying. It's also, it's something you say when you're trying to also convince someone of something that's also not true, which is really fun. It's a good thing to do. What about it's giving?
I think this one's the hardest to explain.
Yep.
But it's like a good energy or a good vibe.
Oh, okay, interesting. How would you use it in a sentence?
Oh, can you not?
This is a spelling bee competition for you.
Your outfit's giving professional. I don't know.
That's good. When someone's sick, you normally say it's giving the Victorian plague. Yeah, cool. So I like that. Used with sass. What's mid?
Very average.
Yeah, cool. The outfit is giving mid. Yeah, something like that. What's Riz?
Charisma.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. What's this one? What's NPC?
It's a non-player character, but
Okay.
basically.
How did you know that? That was pretty good.
I play games.
Oh, that's fine. Who would you call an NPC?
Someone who's not part of the main story. They're not important, or they're kind of just in the background.
Yeah, they don't matter, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So you can just call a friend an NPC when they're not doing anything, or they're
Yeah, yeah.
overstimulated in the corner looking at TikTok.
Yeah.
And the last one.
It means cute essentially.
Yep.
But it's like very like anime. People who go to maybe like a convention center and dress up like an anime character or something would probably use this.
You're really good at this. I like this. Wow, congratulations to your team. Well, that was all of them. Uru is one of the hardest ones to get, but I think they did pretty well.
So it's so funny when... Actually, another round of applause. Yeah, they did well. They did well. Now you'll go back home or back to, I know what UWU stands for. Is that right? All right. So from a leadership perspective, what does that mean? So we all have to, we are going to be in leadership positions, and we think there are 3 levels around leadership. The first level, we all start off as a technical expert. So we first start our technical journey as being proficient and accurate. So Pia, where did you first start your media journey? Where did you start your media journey? Starcom. Do we think that Pia was proficient and accurate? Say yes. Yes, fantastic.
MJ, what do you think?
Okay, then you get promoted to a management position. So management's about effectiveness. You've got resources and you've got tools. So when was your first management role, Pia? UM, fantastic. And it's about getting stuff done and getting stuff done cheaply and effectively, right? Yep. Then we get promoted into a leadership position. When was your first leadership position, Pia? Where do you think? Icon, okay. And leadership is about trust, true or false? Yep. It's about vision. It's about connecting with people. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are people in a leadership position who aren't a leader. They are the leader, but not a leader. Who knows what I'm talking about? Yep, cool. And here's the real worry, is that sometimes people are put into leadership roles without the right skills and tools. So in the beginning, we all are technical experts, then you got promoted to management. Most people put into leadership roles, and what they try and do is they try and be a better leader by being a better manager. Can I get a show of hands? Who knows the people that are in leadership roles, but when they get stressed, they start to micromanage? Or don't point, that's just rude. And here's the thing, it's like, how do we step up into a leadership position? So if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this, especially intergenerational leadership, it is this. Management is mainly about logic, but leadership is about an emotional connection. To truly lead somebody, you have to, or have them follow you, there needs to be a leadership, there needs to be an emotional connection. And, And management is about seeing the visible and hearing what is said, and leadership is fundamentally different. Leadership is seeing the invisible and hearing the unsaid. And that's why people find leadership so challenging. And here's a really weird thing. You know when leadership's there, but you also when leadership's not. True or false? Yep, you can feel it. You don't know what it is exactly. So a little background on myself. So I was born in India. This is me as an icon. My first ever memory of life was that of war. My first memory of life, the first memory I can remember, is hiding under the bed with my mum when the bombs were falling during the India-Pakistan war. So every day when I think about kids and I go to bed, I think about all the kids that are having the same experience that I had. And it breaks my heart. So we came to Australia when I was 4 years old. I grew up in the lovely, lush Blue Mountains. Show of hands, who knows where the Blue Mountains are? Yep. So I was a very dorky Indian kid with no friends. You can go, oh, if you like. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Until I discovered rugby union, and I got very good at rugby. Thank you very much. By the time I was 13, I was playing for the under-15s representative team. My plan was to be the first ever Indian wallaby. Okay, there's some people laughing at that, and I think that's slightly racist. Just letting you know, the psychosocial work you're doing is not working. Just kidding. Yes, there are no Indian rugby players. They in the Wallabies. They missed their chance with me. My parents didn't like the fact that I played rugby. Indian boys don't play rugby. They play? Who plays cricket? That's like a weird game. Who plays a game for 5 days? Anyway, my parents did what most... Actually, before that, who's got kids in this room? Oh, wow, fantastic. Who's been a kid? Who's still a kid? Pia, put your hand up. Very cool. Okay. My parents did what most parents would do in a similar situation, where they saw their Indian son playing too much rugby and chasing too many girls. They sent me back to India. Yeah, well, don't do this. But with the twist, they sent me to become a monk. So I entered an ashram. You know what an ashram is? An ashram. And I entered when I was 13. I got out. I was released when I was 19. No, but I did 14 hours of yoga and meditation for 7 years. I skipped high school, did not do high school, came back to Australia when I was 19. I wasn't allowed to go to school. I went to TAFE. Who knows what TAFE is? Just show of hands, yeah, cool. So I went to TAFE to do my HSC. Then I did, worked for the Australian Treasury as an economist, a diplomat for the Australian Trade Commission. I worked for a company called McKinsey & Company, head of strategy for AMP. Then I started a venture capital business, so that my life was going great. I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but I was slightly full of myself. I know, go figure, management consultant, VC. Life was great until life wasn't. And my life crashed and burned. It literally hit a brick wall with the death of my first daughter. So when my daughter passed away, my life crashed and burned really, really quickly. I almost lost my career, I almost lost my marriage, and I almost lost my life. You get where I'm at? Yeah. And a lot of people say, this is the edge of life. Do you know what I mean by the edge of life? And most people think they're really far back from it. I beg to differ. I think we're a lot closer than we think we are. It just takes one or two things to tip us over. And I struggled mentally, emotionally. I came out of it. I went back to my monastic training. I wrote a book about it called Mental Resilience. For some weird reason, the Oprah magazine picked it up, and this whole weird journey about presenting started. And then we started Resilium about 20 years ago. Fun fact, Pia was in our first high potential program at STW about 16, 17 years ago. That's very cool. So it's really nice. But also, that's not the full story. I met a very wonderful man at the end of one of my programs called Gavin Larkin. Can I get a show of hands? Who knows who he is? Okay, so he is the founder of Are You OK? At the end of, he attended one of our programs at STW. Where's Amy Godfrey? Amy Godfrey was his EA at the time, was that correct? Yeah, so Amy and I go back a long way. So Gavin said, I've got this great idea called Are You OK? What do you think, Kamal? Do you want to be involved? And I said, Gavin, it'll never work, but I'll be involved. So I think one of the most best things of my career has been part of that whole process. And I'm super proud of what Are You OK has achieved, what Gavin did, and it's really, sorry, I get a bit emotional when I talk about it. What he's done has been amazing. Last year, we started a new program called Mementors, which is about giving mentors to people so as they go through the challenges of life, they are supported. Like, I believe you should have your own board of directors. So that's who I am.
Sweet. And I'm Kailash. If you probably figured out, I'm his son. I didn't need to ever get a DNA test because I just look too much like him. But a little bit about me is I was born and raised in Australia. A lot of my friends call me coconut because I'm brown on the outside and white on the inside. And I sort of like that. But unlike my dad, I like league, not union, but we still grew up in a very similar environment. However, when I was a kid, I was sort of that shy, little, skinny Indian kid, sort of like my dad. And I got bullied in school. I developed a speech impediment, and I really struggled. In fact, any time that I would have to get on a stage similar to this, even if it was for a poem, a speech, or just talking up in class, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself to actually get on stage and to speak to people. And it got so bad that I moved schools, and I tried absolutely everything to increase my confidence. It was only when my dad taught me the art of public speaking that I managed to do something, to get up on stage and speak. And in a year, I spoke to a couple of thousands of people in the Opera House. In a couple of years, I was presenting at TEDx. And that really shaped a journey about going, hang on, if I can increase my confidence by speaking, by putting myself out there, maybe there are so many other kids out there that could need the same skills and tools to increase their self-confidence and self-esteem. So when I was 15, I founded Academy of Speakers, a business that we still run today, teaching public speaking to kids. And it's been an amazing journey, and it's something that I've really loved. But one thing that I was always so interested about was understanding, what are people doing in skyscrapers the whole day? Like, what is actually a corporate job? So when I was 17, I joined UBS, part of their investment banking. went there for 3 years, and sort of followed my route through consulting to venture capital to now working in funds management. But similar to my dad, I really do care about RUK. I lost one of my close friends when I was 17. So a lot of work I do is for RUK or Brave Hearts, which is aiming to prevent child sexual abuse. Now, here's the thing. I think with where the world is shifting, almost intelligence is very easy to get. You can ask GPT, Google, whoever, Gemini, for an answer tomorrow. What we aren't that great at is articulating our ideas so that we can influence and persuade people without overpowering them. And I think there's a big difference between overpowering people and empowering people. And that is something that what we aim to do through Academy of Speakers and also speaking about intergenerational communication is actually how do you get people to come by your side and influence them without just using power to get them to do that. And one thing that I love about this journey is that it's allowed me to go and explore many different opportunities. I've been a content creator on Instagram. I was in banking, really bored every single day. So I started posting a reel a day, and that hit over 25 million views in a year, worked with Snapchat, Volvo, and did a TEDx talk with my dad. And that's something that I think, Dad and I, we talk a lot, we communicate a lot. But one thing that's really important to us is making sure that we build that relationship.
And I guess that's one thing that really worries me. Is being disconnected. Can I get a show of hands? Who knows of people that don't talk to family members? Okay, cool. Yeah, and it really worries me. So Kailash and I have a good relationship, but I was always worried, and I saw all these people, and especially a lot of Indian dads that are disconnected from their kids. Also, immigrant parents that are, and so I wanted to make sure, how do we stay connected? And so it's really hard because you're Gen Z, and we love each other, but we feel disconnected. Does that make sense? Sometimes? And I've been fascinated. It's like, how do we stay connected? And it's bloody hard work. It is not easy. He gets on my nerves. I'm sure I get on his occasionally.
I think one thing that's really interesting about us is that before we have a conversation, we try and understand where we're coming from. And I think Gen Z is in a really interesting and weird place right now because we're living in a generation where everything seems to happen. I don't know if you've been on social media recently or Instagram and flicking through your reels that Gen Z are creating, but it's some of the most dark and satirical humor that you can possibly find. And there's a reason for that. So before we talk about intergenerational communication, there's going to be a lot of Gen Z that come into your workforce or starting to come into your workforce. And just understanding what world they live in is really, really important. So there's a quick video I want to quickly show you. And this is what sometimes it feels like talking to older generations. And I thought you might find it quite interesting.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to print out your resume. We'll make sure to use the good paper. You're going to get a nice haircut. You can borrow one of your father's suits, and then you're going to march in there and very politely ask for 30 minutes with the CEO. You're young, you're good looking, you've got a degree. They'll hire you on the spot, I guarantee it.
So my grandfather actually had a very similar conversation with me the other day. He was just like, oh, if you just want to walk into someone's office and talk to them, why don't you just go to reception and just ask when they're free? And I had a conversation just looking at him and go, wow, life has really changed. But if we have a look at where Gen Z is at the moment, 31% of them are far more likely to take a side hustle or an extra job just to survive. They're not doing this because they love what they're doing. They just need to make ends meet. And what I find so frightening is that 45% of Gen Z who are expected to own a home are most likely aiming to pay it off in their retirement as well, compared to a third of millennials. Why this is so challenging is that these are the people expected to be buying a house. This is not all of them. Not all of us have this expectation anymore. And the joke about millennials having avocado toast instead of buying a house, we've sort of just given up on the fact of buying houses. We've just gone, well, maybe are we going to struggle just to even afford avocado toast? The third thing that I find really sad and a bit frustrating is that 80% of us are feeling lonely compared to just 45% of baby boomers. We have all of this technology around us, but we feel like the world hasn't been created to help serve us and help us thrive, but actually make it so that we have to go through all of these hoops just to live in this world. And I think one of the best things to do is actually just spend 10 to 15 minutes on Reddit. go through all of what Gen Z is thinking about and just trying to understand what world they live in. And when you look at them and you look at the apathy that they have to everything that's going on, think about, well, is this just a generational thing? Or is this because of the world that they live in and they're struggling to make ends meet?
So we've done quite a lot of research around how do you stay connected with the people around you, with the people that, and for the last 23 years, we've been trying to figure out who knows how to do this well. We didn't go to Harvard, we didn't go to Stanford or UCLA or the Ivy League. We spent time with people that really know how to connect as human beings. The first group of people we spent time with were FBI negotiators. Do you know why? Because they're very cool. No, they are cool, but they know how to speak in such a way where the other person does not hear judgment. I will repeat that. They know how to speak in such a way where the other person does not hear judgment. That's kind of critical if somebody's got a gun to somebody's head or somebody's got a bomb belt on. Would you agree, yes or no? Yep. Now, when we teach this, this is the toughest part of the program. How do you speak in such a way where the other, because a lot of the times you don't give feedback up, sideways, down, whatever, is that issue of judgment. And that's true with me and Kailash, is that how do I speak to him, not from a place of domination, but from a place of equality in a way that he doesn't hear judgment. The next group of people we spent time with were neuroscientists, to understand what happens when you feel connected with another human being. Shall I tell you? Magic. Your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. You go, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And you had that situation where you've had a conversation and it's felt really therapeutic. It started to heal you. So that is the power of connection. And the other group of people we spent time with were another group of human beings with palliative care nurses. Here's my question to you. What do you think we learned from palliative care nurses? People, what do you think we learned? Just shout it out. Patience, yes, what else? Empathy, yes, what else? What matters, yeah, what else? Just shout it out. Acceptance, yes, what else? Resilience, yes. So you're all right. But we learned that from a lot of the nursing staff and a lot of the doctors and healthcare professionals. One thing about palliative care nurses that was just exceptional, ridiculously 5 standard deviations away from the mean, it is this, is their ability to be present. A lot of the times we're not present, true or false? True or false? We're here, but we're not here. We're here, but we're not here. And it's true in our relationships, it's true with our colleagues, it's true everywhere. And this presence is hard because the first thing I asked you to was to be present. Do you remember that? Yep. Guess what you're struggling with? Being present. You're here, but you're not here. You're here, but you're not here. And I know it's early in the morning. I know this is a keynote. But one of the biggest challenges about leadership, and we talk about it, leadership is when somebody has presence. Isn't that interesting? But what do? We practice distraction the whole day. So we go back to our partner, our parents, our kids, our colleagues. We are just so distracted all the time. So here is the paradox, and the paradox is weird. We were never taught how to communicate or connect. Boom. We were never taught how to communicate or connect. Can I get a show of hands? Who knows people that as you're speaking to them, your life force is drained? Who knows people like that? Yeah. Once you don't point, it's not their fault. That's how they were brought up. You with me? Yep. Or there are some people who are really, really direct. Oh, I'm really direct. No, you're not. You're rude. But they don't get it. They say, I'm just being direct. No, you're not. You're being rude. And it's because it's not about the message sent, it's about the message received. And that's true with intergenerational things as well. How do you make sure that the message that's been received by your colleague, by your partner, by your kids, hasn't got that sense of judgment in it? I'm going to show you a little video clip. There's a little bit of swearing in this video clip, so please apologize. But it really gets to, we pick up the way we speak subconsciously. So I'm going to show you this video clip. I'm going to get you to watch it.
That was Robert, wasn't it? I thought you two were friends.
No, he's a bloody idiot.
Don't you dare use words like that, Michelle. How do you pick up such filth?
Bloody idiots! Why don't you look where you're going? Got a kid in the car.
Relate to that? All right, cool. It's a bit scary. So what they've showed is between the ages of 0 and 3, a child picks up 50% of their inner dialogue, the way they speak to themselves. By the time a child is 7 years old, they have picked up 80% of their inner dialogue, the way they speak to themselves. What we know from the research is that talk can be either empowering or it can be disempowering. Who is your inner voice? I know who my inner voice is, my dad. And my dad told me very simply, he said, son, you're a brown guy in a white country, you've got to work twice as hard to get half as far. You with me so far? Yep. And I worked hard. I worked hard, getting into university, in McKinsey, in private equity. I worked hard. And I saw a lot of my mates not doing so well. Do you know why? They got addicted to working hard. Then they crashed their health, they crashed their relationships. My biggest fear is giving my inner voice to Kailash. Do you get what I'm trying to say? To get him to get, because that inner voice, understanding that inner voice is so powerful for resilience, for flowing, for flourishing, for stress, all that kind of stuff. Most people talk about eat well, move well, yeah, whatever. But you need to understand that inner voice. Understand that inner voice is so critical for yourself, for the people around you. So what we know is that there are generational communication gaps, but that's just the beginning. There's also cultural gaps. There's socioeconomic gaps, the industry, what industry you're in. There's personality gaps, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. And there's digital gaps in terms of how you communicate. So while we're talking about just intergenerational today, you have to look at all of these before you actually start to communicate and connect. So we want to give you a few tools. So at the end of these sessions, now please be careful when you use these tools, because a lot of people, when we do these kind of sessions, they want hacks and tips. Kind of okay, but what I think we're looking for is mastery. Do you get the difference between mastery and tools and hacks? We've become addicted to hacks, but we're still struggling with all this communication stuff. Mastery is about pursuing these, so obviously learn it today, but you won't get mastery over it, but hopefully we'll give you some kind of idea on some of the tools that you can use.
Sweet. So we're going to be talking a bit about the 4 types of expectations that we have. And this is something that Dad and I talk about a lot. Because growing up, we've had an interesting relationship where we had to be father and son, then we had to be business partners, and then we have to live together, and then we have to work together every Saturday and Sunday. And that's a lot of time that we spend together. And if we don't have the right expectations set up, ultimately, we just won't get along. And I think we seem to get along quite well. What do you think? Most of the time. There are some challenging days.
So what we find, especially in organizations from a leadership perspective, if the cost and effort of making things go right versus the cost and effort fixing them up when they go wrong, it's like this. Do you get what I'm trying to say? What we see time and time again with leaders is they don't set up expectations in the beginning. They try and fix them up at the end because they're so busy. What we find is the exact opposite. Fixing, the cost and urgency of when things go wrong versus fixing up in the beginning. Who can relate to this? Yep. And we see it with performance management, with feedback.
One of the things that we've tried to do is always clarify expectations. So Dad and I normally have a conversation every single day where we talk about what's going on, what is happening, and how can we actually improve. Now, the first type of expectation is unmet expectations. And this is where I expect you to do something, and I get upset if you don't actually get that done. And obviously, this is the most type of obvious conflict because the outcome is not well articulated. Now, there's something that Dad and I both disagree on. So number one is whenever I do a presentation, I want the slides to be 100%. The formatting needs to look good. Everything needs to be aligned. And when I look at Dad's slides, sometimes there's things that are like 15% to the right. And that really just gets me going.
But let's face it, I do a lot more presentations than you do. And so I've got to go fast. I've got to go for speed. Like I'm doing keynotes kind of like 3 or 4 every week. And so I'm going boom, boom, boom. So I've got to come up with new stuff. So I can't get it right. But there's a lot of tension between the two of us, especially for today. Yeah.
Even when writing emails, I've had to go to him, hey Dad, like we can't write emails like this. We need to have correct formatting with things while he's typing on his phone with the normal sent from my iPhone, which a manager always does. The second thing is undeclared expectations. And this is where I have an expectation from someone, but I don't declare it to them. And often when they don't meet my expectation, I will get upset or someone will get upset. And one of the perfect examples we have is we have to work together, but we both have jobs, or well, I have a job and he runs his business. So when I want to work on a Saturday, I would want to work on a 9 to 5 sort of day, so I can still live my youth and go out wherever I want to go out.
Yeah, but I'm married to your mum. And so I'm going to spend a bit of time with her. So I want to try and fit my working schedule in between my life. So he wants to work 9 to 5 so he can go on a date on Saturday night. But I want to make sure that I still have a marriage by the end of the time we have this. It's very different.
And the last one is unexplored expectations. This is when sometimes we have an expectation, but we don't know exactly what it is until it isn't met. And it's weird because it only really impacts us afterwards. And this happens in new teams, new reporting structures, new ways of working. And this really requires us to assess our unexplored expectations. Now with this, we have something that we both disagree on, where if my dad tries and calls me in a day, I don't like to pick up. I would rather he just sends me a text.
So after 5 texts, and I'm getting frustrated, I'm saying, can't we just have like literally a 5-minute chat so we can't communicate? Now the problem with unexplored expectations is you don't know it's an expectation until it's not met. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Different from unmet or undeclared. Unexplored expectation, I'm having this conversation with you, we're in the middle of something, you're in a deal, I'm trying to get up on stage and do stuff, and I'm getting frustrated with him. So what we want to do is try and preempt that frustration.
And the last one is unrealistic expectations. So this is where I just can't do it no matter what. And even if you have this expectation of me, you can communicate it, but I just can't meet it. So today we're actually going to do a bit of a table discussion, so similar to the last steps, but come up with an example from work and how these expectations did show up for unmet, undeclared, unexplored, and also an unrealistic expectation that you have.
So what we believe is that from a leadership perspective, if you set this up and you have a conversation around this, you're more likely to reduce stress, number one, and also increase productivity by about 30 to 40%. That's our view. So off you go, quick chat, make sure you have a spokesperson to report back to us, and we'd like you to use a workplace example. On your way, let's do it. All right, let's regroup. Let's regroup. So I think we've got a few volunteers.
Yep.
So we're going to do table 7, please.
Yep,
Can I get a round of applause for table 7? I think it's Johan. Woo, Johan. So what did you come up with? Just a quick overview.
Oh, yeah, great. We had an example from work of someone not meeting a deadline.
Right.
And that kind of came, the unmade expectation is that they didn't meet the deadline.
Right.
The undeclared expectation was that we assumed that they knew how to do the task.
Ah, okay.
So when the task was met, like obviously the deadline was missed, and kind of as we explored it, we were a bit, well, actually it's because the person wouldn't know how to do the task, and they lacked a sense of proactivity to come to the manager and say, well, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, so I'm stuck.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you. Round of applause, please. Well done. All right. Table number
13.
13. I think it's on.
Hey, we actually had a
So
similar
what was your name?
Sorry, Julian from Initiative.
Round of applause for Julian.
Yeah, we had a similar one around timelines, but then we also kind of moved on to the encouraged but not mandatory trainings, meetings, so on and so forth. And that obviously kind of falls a lot in that like unexplored / undeclared expectations, because it's really kind of around the language, or you may feel like you're really encouraging people to do something and therefore have an expectation of it, but it's not explicitly said.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in between that, that undeclared and unexplored, which is really interesting. And then we also moved on to kind of clients, and we do feel like a lot of it falls into a lot of these, and especially unrealistic, but that's really also comes down to an understanding of what happens in the background for one individual output, that what they see. So it is like a lot of work to do that explaining and taking them through the process so that you can kind of remove that layer of an unrealistic expectation by having that communication.
Fantastic. Thank you. Round of applause, please. Well done.
Julian, do you manage to do all of your mandatory and non-mandatory trainings, or? 49%. We love that. We love that a lot. Well, we're going to move on to tool 2, which is called range. And it's something that Dad and I both use a lot. So just to quickly describe it, range is number
You
one.
might want to write this acronym down as you go. Yep.
Reflect. Number 2 is accept. Number 3 is normalize. G is give empathy. And number 3 is explore. And I thought one of the best ways to do this is actually talk about a conversation Dad and I had. I think it was now a fortnight ago at 11:17 p.m. on a Thursday. Just to talk about how we actually use this in real life. So before we talk about each step, I think one of the best things to do is talk about what was going on. So number 1 is I just started a new job. My hours are from probably 8 a.m. in the morning till 11:30 p.m. at night. It's quite intense hours sometimes, and I've just been going in quite a tunnel vision, so I wasn't really too much considering my family or what's going around me, just focusing on work.
So what we do is we just kind of reflect how I'm seeing the situation, what my reality is. Like, I kind of feel like he treats the place like a hotel, not a home, and I was getting a bit upset by it, and it was just really rubbing me up the wrong way. So I wanted to ask him, how did he see the situation?
Yeah, and I think what I was talking about was just this idea of like, no, I haven't really been able to see anything apart from what's been in front of me. I've just had to be completely tunnel vision and completely focus on the job ahead. So that was how we were reflecting on it. I think the second thing was just about accepting each other's realities that we see. You know, I accept that, hey, I haven't really been a team member at home. I've just been so focused on what I got to do. I totally forgot that there are other people at home living their own lives and living our lives that we have to live together.
And I think the biggest part of this is you have to accept their reality even if you can't understand it. I'll repeat that. You have to accept their reality even if you can't understand it. And that can be really powerful, that he's got to accept that's my reality and I've got to accept that it's his reality, even if we don't understand it, because we have very different perspectives on life right now. But this is true for team members as well.
Next one is normalize. I think what we've had to accept is like, hey, as a parent, like I totally understand why you're feeling this way. What you're feeling is not normal, it's not abnormal. What you're feeling is normal. And actually understanding that, you know what, this conflict or this tension that we're having is something that happens a lot with parents and also their kids.
And it's normal for him, starting a new gig, new job. He's totally focused. You're working Perth hours, US hours, and UK hours. And so I can understand that it's normal for him to be feeling overwhelmed.
Cool. And the last one is give empathy. I think one of the things that we were doing when we were sitting around and talking was this idea of going, oh, this must be really challenging for you as well. Like I can see how if I was in your situation, I would feel these 3 things.
I think what we try and do is empathize on both sides. So I'm giving him empathy and he's giving me empathy. But the other thing I think sometimes, well, as a parent, I'm not that much of a leader, is to say, I need some empathy around this. I'm feeling a little bit disconnected from you. And the last one is exploring options.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we both talked about was just having a meeting every single Sunday for 15 minutes as a family, talking about, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the week's looking like. These are probably the times I'm going to be home if I'm going to make it home from the office. And also, what do you need from me? What are the expectations that you have?
I think being clear about my expectations of him and him being clear of his expectations of us. Weird, we do have a shared family, but obviously we're colleagues and we're father and son, so it's kind of a little bit weird. Other families find it a little bit weird.
Yeah.
We do that, but it is what it is.
We also have systems in place to make sure that we can explore solutions. Number 1 is we have a Sarma family calendar, where if there's an event that we all need to go in, we put it in that calendar, we invite each other onto that, give enough details so we know, as well as what mode of transportation people are taking to make sure we're not taking 3 cars to the same event. We have a WhatsApp chat that is just Dad giving old photos of me and my sister, but that's okay as well.
Too much information, Kailash.
Too much information.
Okay, all right, thank you. But I think it's really important for us to do that. So that's range. Obviously, there's a depth in this we haven't shared with you. If you want more information, please let us know. But making people feel like their reality is real, big part of it. Tool 3 is a big one for us, and I've alluded to it already, and the video alluded to it. And we believe there are 3 types of conversations. And I think as a leader, if you can master these 3 types of conversation, magic happens. So what are the 3 types of conversations? Well, they're based around this little sucker. This is a neuron. Can I get a show of hands? Who knows what a neuron is? It's a brain cell, yep. So the research shows now that these brain cells being found in our head, they're also in our heart and also in our gut. So we talk about a broken heart, we talk about it's a gut feeling. So we have neurons in all 3 parts If you want more research, there's some great papers around this, around how we actually converse, how we think with these three parts. And so what we found is there's three types of conversation. The first one is a help conversation. The next one is a heard conversation. And the next one is a heal conversation. And they're very, very different. A heard conversation, it's about logic. It's about making sure you get a solution. It's about a practical outcome. Heard conversation is an emotional connection. It's about making sure you explore the feelings that you have. And lastly, it's a heal conversation. And a heal conversation is very much around identity. People feel wounded if their identity is being impacted. Now, what we know is that this is for decision making, this is for connection, and this is for relationship driven. Those are the three things. Here's the magic. And this is when the science has actually caught up with what we know, is that in different types of conversation, different neurons are firing. Wow! So in a head conversation, your brain neurons are firing. In your heard conversation, your heart neurons are firing. And in your heal conversation, it's your gut's feeling. You feel it in your gut, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes leaders give the wrong conversation at the wrong time. Can I get a show of hands? Who's ever experienced this? You've just wanted to feel heard, but somebody's giving you advice that you really don't want. Okay, that's a lot of people. You get what I'm trying to say? And that's when connection is broken. It happens with, parents and stuff like that. Oh, Kailash, you should do this. Shut up, Dad. I just want you to listen. Do you get the difference? Happens in relationships. So knowing when to have what conversation can be really, really powerful. It's like having a GPS. Imagine you had a GPS for your conversations. You know what to give. Now, here's the weird thing. People give you hints of what conversation they need when, but most people are not present, so they don't know what conversation to give. You get what I'm trying to say here? Kind of weird. All right, so three big takeaways that we want to leave you with, and then we're going to get the panel up. Takeaway number one is create range in your conversation. If you want to lead with impact across all generations, across all different cultures, make sure you know how to have that range conversation. The next one is clarify expectations early. The unmet, the undeclared, the unexplored,